right, everyone. Well, welcome to the City of Santa Barbara Fire and Police Commission special meeting. July 22nd, 2021 is now in session. So let's start out with a call to order. Carol, would you like to do that, please?
Sure. Chair Stedman?
Here.
Vice Chair Rodriguez?
Here.
Commissioner Allman? Oh, he's there.
Looks like his video might be.
Yeah, I think he's having streaming problems, but
Right.
he's here.
Right, he's here. We see him.
And Commissioner Travis Teague is absent.
Correct. Okay, thank you very much, and welcome, fellow commissioners from Minnesota and other areas on the planet. Let's see. Now, I think there are going to be some changes to the agenda. I'm referring to item 3 for the public and everyone else. And that's that our city administrator, we want to allow him, some time rather than having him wait for item number 8, which is the police department update. So why don't we do that first, and then we'll move to approval of the meeting minutes, okay? If that's all right with my fellow commissioners. All right.
Yes.
Okay, good. Mr. Casey, Paul, how are you?
Thank you, Chair Stedman, commissioners. Thank you. I appreciate allowing me to go first. I appreciate that very much. So I wanted to come and give you an update on the police chief recruitment process, because I've thrown a little monkey wrench into things by announcing that I'm stepping down as city administrator effective September 10th. And the recruitment for the police chief was going to occur such that interviews and selection was going to occur right around towards the end of my tenure here at the city. And I felt professionally that that was not the right thing to do. The relationship between a city administrator and police chief is one of the most important relationships you have in local government. And so I really feel as a principle that it'd be best for whoever the next permanent city administrator is able to choose their police chief to work so closely with. So looking at that and trying to figure out how to deal with that, I, of course, have been talking to our interim chief, Barney Malakian, who I can't say enough positive things about. He's, you all see it as well. The community sees he's just doing an outstanding job. And he has graciously said he would actually like to serve through the end of the calendar year. He was excited about the opportunity, so I did not have to twist his arm. So he's going to allow that for this transition and timing to work out much better than the path we were on. So I want to thank Chief Malakian very much for willing to serve to the end of the calendar year. The city council then will work on the process of finding my replacement, and then hopefully we can kind of sync that timing up such that the next permanent city administrator is the one making the final selection of the police chief. So I wanted to come and inform you of that. We were getting ready to ask you to choose a couple members to serve on the interview panel. I'd like to postpone that, and let's wait and see how the timing kind of works out in that regard. And you'll certainly stay engaged in this process because you do have that charter role of helping to inform the selection of the next police chief. So that I fully intend and hope the organization will honor that going forward, as they should. But I really want to thank Chief Malakian in particular for being willing to serve through the remainder of the calendar year. And I think we will benefit from his expertise and guidance during that time. Happy to answer any questions about that.
Yeah, well, thanks for hopping on so quickly, Paul, to keep us informed shortly after your surprise announcement, right?
Surprise to some. It's been a stewing in the background for me.
Good for you. So,
Yeah, thank you.
It looks like the only exposure we might have in terms of process disruption is the Chief Malakian will serve until the end of the calendar year, right? And we may not have any new chief selected by that time. Is that how you see it?
Yes, I'll start and then I'll let Chief Malikian talk about that as well. That's a possibility, and there's a number of ways the city could try to address that. I don't want to go into them too much, but there are a couple of options that we're already kind of thinking about if that situation comes forward. But we've got 5 months till we get to that point. I don't know, Chief, if you wanted to say anything about that.
I was just going to say the restrictions or the selection really at the end of the calendar year have to do with the PERS retirement system and some of its requirements. And city HR is looking at a couple of options to see if there's any way that makes sense for me to move beyond that. I will say that I think if that doesn't work, I think we've got a couple of other ideas that will, I think, and I'll brief you on it once we've sorted out this other thing and the other options, and I think it will be in good stead.
Excellent. Yes, Lizzie.
So first off, Paul, congratulations on your announcement. You've served the community well, and with so many important changes, personnel changes ahead of our city, your experience and expertise will be greatly missed. And I am happy that you'll be able to retire young and in a great place like Santa Barbara. So congratulations on that. I have a question about the recruitment process. So I know that after last year, there were a number of chiefs that retired, progressive chiefs in particular, that retired across the nation. So cities large and small have been recruiting for their new chiefs. And I'm wondering, with this delay, it looks like it might be about 4 to 6 month pushback. Do you see this hindering or helping the recruitment process?
Thank you, Chair Stedman and Vice Chair Rodriguez, and thank you for the comments. It's very nice of you, Lizzie. The good question, and something we've been talking to our recruiter about. They've acknowledged that this is a tough climate right now to recruit because there are so many open police chiefs across the state. So they acknowledged that that was a challenge right now, such that they felt, a 6 month delay might be okay. Just because it's such a crowded field right now. I don't know if Chief Malikian has any observations as well.
Thanks. Yes, it is a crowded field, and interestingly, as a point of comparison, the headhunter had received 26 applications for the position. When Lori Lenau applied 5 years ago, at this stage of the process, they had received 97 applications. And so besides just the number of openings, the climate is very, very challenging for someone to take on this role.
Mr. Casey, is there anything that the city can do or the Fire and Police Commission can do to make us more attractive for a well-qualified applicant?
Thank you, Chair Stedman and Vice Chair Rodriguez. The one thing the recruiter says is our pay scale might be a little off market. And so that's a challenge for council that they're gonna have to look at because of the domino effects of how that might impact other pay scales within the city, especially at the executive level. So I do think that's something they're gonna have to look at during this pause. That was the one thing the recruiter said, is that they were recruiting a couple of candidates from outside who were maybe gonna have to take a pay cut to move to Santa Barbara, which is an extremely expensive place to live. And that was a tough combo they were finding in getting people to apply. So I think that's the main one. I think we have a great reputation. We have a great reputation as a good city organization. I think the department has a good reputation. I think the town has a good reputation, so that's good. The other thing, we're very comparable in many ways. Actually, both Barney and I used to work for the city of Santa Monica, so we're familiar with the comparisons, but they're actively recruiting for their police chief right now as well. And the city of Santa Monica is just well known as one of the best paid organizations in the state of California. And so that, when you're kind of looking, which Santa do you want to apply to, that makes it a challenge. So getting past that might help us as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Allman, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. I just want to commend Paul Casey on his service and gonna miss you.
Yeah, I'm sticking around town. I'm not I'm not going for
Well,
it.
good. We'll see you around. We'll see you around town. You know, I was brought up about recruitment. I am getting or seeing requests for firefighters around everywhere in the state and beyond, which is very unusual. People are looking for firefighters now. Is it the demographics? Are we all retiring at the same time? Or I don't know what it is, but it's not just hiring in the police realm. It's hiring in the firefighters too. So kind of strange. No answers for that.
So does this mean that you'll be jogging around with Jim Armstrong and I'll run into you along the seawall?
Maybe.
All right, there'll be two of you now to be on
That's
the
right.
lookout for. All right. Well, excellent. Thanks, Paul. I'll just, chime in with everyone else. Thank you. Obviously, we'll give you a more formal send off, but appreciate the update.
Good. Well, thank you all very much. And you're in good hands. So with Chief Males and Chief Malekian, we're doing really well. So
Yeah, I concur.
thank you.
100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
All right. Well, that's a big item, huh? So are there any other changes to the agenda from the commission? So we're all set, huh? All right. So let's move to item number 4, which is approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting, June 24th, 2021. Commissioners, do you have any comments about that, or do you want to make a motion to approve?
No comments, and if there are no comments, I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that
Aye.
that item carries unanimously. Carol, do we have any public comment? Anybody with their hands raised?
No, Chair Stedman, no one has their hand raised.
Okay. All right. Are there any items of old business that my fellow commissioners want to bring up at this time? Okay. All right, we are moving briskly right along here. So we're going to move to the police and fire liaison reports. I'll let you go first, John.
Yeah, we had a lengthy conversation with Chief Males, and we're talking about a lot of the different things that are going on now, especially with a number of medical calls coming up. That's one thing. Seems to be a surge in that, and also talking about out-of-town assignments that affect us in a way, not seriously here, because we always have enough folks to backfill. But that'll be one of the things we did talk about, and that's a very interesting subject that I'm thinking he'll hit on. Other than that, just keeping a watchful eye on the fire department. They're doing well as far as I can see. Try to stay in contact with the folks that I still remember there. A lot of them are retiring now. And some of the young ones that I helped retire are still there. So I still have some familiar faces, but it's going to get slimmer and slimmer. But that's about all I have.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the update. I mean, between you and Chief Mills, I don't know if Vice Chair agrees, but I feel pretty well informed. So you guys seem to handle it pretty well. So thank you very much.
He does a great job.
Yeah, both of you do. Both of you do.
Thank you.
So on the police liaison side, I met with our chief earlier in the week. And of course, our fellow commissioner, Diane Travis Teague, who graciously volunteered to shadow me, couldn't make that meeting, so she was not in attendance. But generally, the chief and I covered sort of the landscape for one full year, because one of the goals that Chief Malekian has before transitioning out of this current role that he's in is to, leave a blueprint, or create a blueprint actually, for the next chief of police in terms of their interaction with the Fire and Police Commission. So we generally at about 40,000 feet talked about the scope and effectiveness of dance permits. We have one up for approval on today's agenda. We talked about, we mentioned org chart updates, so maybe we'll see that in the near future from the department. Maybe an update on the planning construction of the new police station from the point man, project manager Brad Hess. Regular updates on the hiring and staffing status, that pipeline, how many officers are in the retirement window. Some commentary about the use of force policy, some commentary about the Homeland Security Funding Authority. That approval team, our chief is on. And then, you know, the usual cadence that we receive, response times, and any other matters that are related to that. There's also generally during the course of a year, there's, you know, if there are any private patrol operator updates, we receive those. There's usually an annual meeting every April concerning the tow operators. The reason why we had one not too long ago is because we skipped that in 2020. And then we wanted to clarify, Vice Chair, anything you have concerning the August training, the proposed training, and how that looks, unless you want to save that for your own comments, item number 12. But we did mention that. I mentioned to the chief, I don't really have any details on that. So Paul Casey already reported out. And I think that's basically it. There might be an item or two that the chief himself will want to report on personally in his report, but that's how the police liaison meetings go. They're one-on-one. We cover items just like what I mentioned. So that can always serve as a vehicle, not only for the commissioners, you know, to communicate, but also the public too, if they want to contribute any comments to this process. Are there any questions from any of my colleagues? You guys are okay? All right.
I don't have any questions.
Yeah.
Thanks for all that information though.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And a recap of those meetings is generally sent to the administrator. So that was sent to Nicole in this case, right after the meeting. So there is a recap of our discussion. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Moving right along here, let's move to straight into Chief Malekian's report.
Chair Stedman and Commissioners, thank you. And as Paul indicated, I will be in this role until the end of the year. And one of the things that I think the conversation that Chair Stedman referred to is actually very helpful. I had certainly not inherited something similar to that. So a lot of these items that the commission is used to getting reported on, I wasn't familiar with. This will allow us, Nicole and I, Nicole Casper in my office and I to work together, and we'll set this up so that going forward, they'll just be an annual. These reports will be in the pipeline, and when the permanent chief comes on board, there won't be any interruption in that. So I'm pleased about that. I might bounce around a little bit. I know Lori Peterson, I believe, is on the line. I do have an update on the general state of dance permits, and then we do have one permit for your consideration. But if Lori's on she's our business manager, and she oversees the office that handles these permits. And if she's on, I'll let her give that report. And if she's not or not able to connect, I'm capable of doing it. Lori?
I am here.
Chief, hi, Lori. This is Chair Stedman. May I just make one comment before you begin? I forgot to mention. Yeah, I forgot to mention everybody that during the discussion with the liaison discussion with Chief Malekian earlier this week, we did mention the status of technology projects, Chief. So maybe you can comment about that a little more after Lori. We generally, at one point, there were 20 plus active technology projects in the police department IT pipeline. and we would receive, some report on that. So I think the chief's aware of that, and we will probably see some information about that forthcoming.
That is correct. There's about 10 items on the list that Chair Stedman and I went over, and I'm just going to start picking them off as months go forward. And Vice Chair Rodriguez, the question about training is really going to center on whether or not that was going to be part of the August agenda or a separate meeting, and that'll determine what I do then. But for the moment, if I could, I will turn you over to Lori Peterson.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Fire and Police Commission. Lori Peterson, the business manager. I'm sorry that my video is not working today, but at least I have the audio. Before you is the request to approve a dance permit for Yona Reds at 532 State Street. Our police technician, Liz Scott, put the report together for you, and you've had a chance to review it. The applicant has met all of the qualifications per the Muni Code and has implemented the security and noise mitigation plans and has complied with what is being requested of him. So at this point, I didn't think I'd need to go through the details of what was submitted. But if you have questions or have items that we need to address, let me know.
I think, Lori, if you'll be around when we actually get to that item number 11 to vote on whether to approve or not, that would be helpful.
Okay. And no additional questions or concerns about what was submitted to you for their plan or? All right.
Yeah.
I will stay on and
What-
be present for that vote.
May I ask you one quick question, Lori? At one point 2 years ago, and I don't know if Vice
Chair,
Chair Rodriguez-
I have a report on the total number of permits, if that's where you're going.
That's where I was going. That's exactly where I was going. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, and I'm sorry, Lori, I think I'm the one that took that out of sequence, so my error. With regards to one of the items that I discussed with the chair was this issue of what's the status of dance hall permits. All of the dance hall permits that we had, we have 15 permits total in the city, both current and expired. There are 2 new ones in the application process, one of which I believe is the one you're considering today. They were all those permits were allowed to lapse during COVID. And as a result, the business office, Liz Scott in the business office has been sending out reminders and getting that process started back up again in some kind of a sequential fashion. She's given people 60 days to get into compliance before they have to completely start over again as new applicants. Currently, 7 permits are now, of the 15, are now fully current. As I said, 2 new clubs are in the application process, and Liz expects 4 more to be current by the end of August. The remaining applicants will be, or clubs will be staggered over the next 2 to 3 months. It appears that one of them, the La Pachanga Club, is closed and will require a new application. And another one, the owner will require a new application because the owner never completed his application in 2019. So that's kind of where we are with that process. And as I said, you'll have the one in front of you today in just a minute. And so I don't know if there's any questions on the dance permits, but that's where we are with that.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. What I was going to ask Vice Chairman was whether or not she was on the commission the last time that we really went through these permits, and it turned into a process, right? These guys had legal representation, and so I'm glad to see that we're on top of it, especially after coming off a lapse period. We need those permits active. So I appreciate the update.
Now, moving on, probably the big item this month really has been the homeless encampment cleanup that we've been involved in. Six, together with Environmental Protective Services and CityNet, the Street Crimes Unit, which is really the bike team. When we talk about organizational structure, there's going to be a couple of name changes, and that's going to be one of them. But they targeted 6 camps in fire-prone areas. They have done cleanups on 3 of them. I actually went out and visited one of the camps, the one on the Garden Street off-ramp last week. They've completed 3 of the 6, but unfortunately the process has now come to a halt because the Rose Garden Inn, which you may remember from the council discussion, holds up to 50 people, is now full, and which was not an unexpected challenge. So we'll keep working through that process. I will say that I've been very impressed both with environmental services and the CityNet people. They're really very good at what they do. They have an excellent relationship with our bike team and the restorative policing unit. Officer Burley, who some of you may know, has really done a great job in sort of building relationships with people. With a couple of exceptions, we have not had to use the enforcement authority to get people to move along. So I don't know. I did send you a video. I wasn't going to presume to play it during the meeting. It's about 5 minutes long. It's the first of a series called Upfront with SBPD, and we'll address different issues of concern to the community as we make. This is a draft video. I just reviewed it and approved it this morning, but I sent it to you for your review. It deals specifically with the approach to homelessness, and as we do future videos, I'll make sure that you have them. The commission will see them before they're released. So that's kind of where we are with on the homeless encampment issue. Lastly, there was a question also raised about the Homeland Security grants and that process, which is an annual process. This year, Santa Barbara PD did not make any requests. As you know, there are a number of agencies that partner in that grant process, and we try to make sure that we're sort of sharing resources. We don't try to divvy it up among each agency. 2 or 3 agencies will usually have a project that's really critical to them. I think probably one of the big ones, and it doesn't look like it's going to be able to go through, was a fencing of the parking lot for the Lompoc Police Department, and similar to what was done in Santa Barbara for the Santa Barbara Police Department a few years ago, some security fencing around the cars, and that lot also serves county probation, county DA, and county courts up in Lompoc. The grant committee, and I sit on that committee, authorized $150,000 to begin that process. It appears as though they may run into some concerns with the county, so it's not 100% clear whether or not that project is going to go to completion. If it does not, we will go back and look at other options for allocating that money, and I'll report that to you. And lastly, for me, next to last, actually, I was asked to talk about crime stats. Apparently, that's a normal thing. For I have the statistics out for June. Our violent crimes was down 7% for the month and 5% for the year, compared to a year ago. There's no probably the most dramatic drop off, and I really don't have an explanation for why. Is for the number of rapes. The numbers are small, so the percentage numbers get get big, but from May to June, there were 11 crimes in May and only 6 in June. And then last year at this time, there have been 45 sexual assaults, and this year, 32. That was probably the single biggest drop off in terms of crime. The challenge with that is we don't know whether we never know whether this is a reporting issue or an occurrence issue, and that's we always look at that. And then under property crimes, they actually went up 6% for the month and 13% for the year. And undoubtedly the single biggest jump is in commercial burglaries. Although there is some good news in that commercial burglaries are still down for the year, but they were up for the month. But the numbers of commercial burglary, the numbers again are small, so the percentage numbers are big. But there have been you may have seen a newspaper report there, some concerns about some property gangs out of Los Angeles who are from South America. They're actually an organized ring. And our detectives did make an arrest. They went down to LA and recovered some property and took 2 people into custody. And that's actually a pretty big deal. That doesn't happen very often. And the detectives did a really excellent job with that. So we're hoping that kind of sends a message that maybe that, not coming here would be a smart thing to do. So that's it on crime. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, Commissioner Rodriguez, who serves on both the Oversight Formation Commission and this one, can talk better about it. But I attended my first meeting. I deliberately sort of stayed away from those meetings while they were in the formation discussion. But going forward, I will be in attendance. And I was very impressed with the thoughtfulness and the approach that was taken. And if that meeting was any indication, I'm very optimistic that nothing but good things will come out of this process. So that concludes my report.
I have a question, Chief. Did you mention an organization, NACOLE, NACOLE?
I don't think I did, but I probably should have. One of the decisions that the Formation Commission made, and I'm sure Commissioner Rodriguez can talk more about the process, was to bring NACOLE, the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, into the process. They're a nationally known organization. They've been around for 20 plus years, maybe a little bit more. I actually have done work with them in New Orleans and Seattle, and I've been very impressed with what they do. And I think they presented a very tight timeline for the Formation Commission to be able to report out to the council next March. And I believe the Chair Escobedo, is giving a report to the council next week. But maybe Chair Rodriguez can talk more about that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Good to hear your perspective.
That's all I have.
Okay. Do my fellow commissioners have any questions for the chief?
Hi, John, I just had a question. Not a question, a comment. I appreciate hearing the stats, but I have to admit I listen often to what the police are doing and fire are doing, and I hear them making the stats, and there's a lot going on out there that I listen to, and I have to say that those folks are doing a tremendous job, and I mean that. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, that they are working hard and going to the same issues over and over and doing a great job. So my kudos to them. I don't see them often in the street, but when I do, I say hi and thank them.
Thank you. And I can assure you that kind of feedback is appreciated.
So I wanted to commend the department. I noticed that there were several reports of de-escalation that occurred in the last few weeks, and we often hear about the incidences nationwide that lead to harm and protests, and we rarely hear about the de-escalation experiences. So I just want to commend the department on that. I know it's something that that has been an area of focus, but not enough reporting. So thank you for that. And also regarding the encampment cleanup, I attend the weekly RAP meetings through SB Act, and they have been reporting on the progress of the cleanups. And I have to say, it sounds like it's very well organized and very well coordinated between multiple departments. And the goal of SB Act at one point was to try to find housing for, or to transition out of homelessness 20 or 25 people in this year. And I think it's already been surpassed by, I think there's 60 people that have been placed into housing, even if it's just bridge housing for now. And if I understand correctly, by August, they expect to transition about 100 people out of homelessness. So the co-coordinated activities is really making a huge impact in our community. So thank you for that.
Good job. All right. Are there any other comments or any hands raised from the public, Carol?
No hands raised, Chair Stedman.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chief. I feel like I've received a lot of input from your department this week, so that's much appreciated. I think moving forward, we can really improve the efficiency of that reporting. So now we're going to move on to our fire department update and Chief Males. There he is.
Good afternoon, Chair Stedman, Commissioners Rodriguez and Allman. Good afternoon from the fire department. Thanks for giving me a few minutes to chat. As Commissioner Allman stated, we had a great meeting earlier this week, and I updated him on all the goings on the fire department, which I'll share a few with you. I'll end the presentation with just a few statistics. We're at the end of a quarter that ended in June, so we'll look at the call volume. We have a marked significant increase in call volume that is expected not only seasonally, but as we come out of COVID, there's a lot of people out on the street. So, but I'll give you a little update on our out-of-town fire assignments first. As you know, our fire department is heavily involved in mutual aid. In fact, every Southern California fire department is heavily involved in mutual aid. As I've mentioned to you before, it's the envy of the world. Our mutual aid system is about as perfect as it can possibly be. We typically, when we receive assignments, they come via two means, either through the federal government or through the state. So, but I think it's really important to understand, and I know I've emphasized this before, no matter how many firefighters we send out of town to fires, and I'll share with you, we have a number of firefighters on the Dixie Fire northeast of Chico right now. Your Santa Barbara City fire stations are covered. We do not brown out fire stations. There may be a short period of time where an engine goes out of town, you know, on an emergent basis, red lights, siren, and it may be a short period of time before we can get a recall crew in. But we don't brown out fire stations on a daily basis. Our primary objective is to care for our own community. So with that said, all departments work to attain a balance between helping our neighbors and also staying true to our local organization. So the number that we have, we typically send no more than about 18 people out of town at a time. While that may not sound like a lot, that's over half of one on-duty shift. So I'll give you an example. Right now, we have several personnel from B shift who are out, and B Shift is on duty tomorrow. And I just got a message saying that they're looking for 10 people to work tomorrow. So they'll find those 10 people to staff the stations, but that's because of the people that are out of town. So to back up, we typically get requests through the Forest Service, or we get requests through the state. And those state requests filter down to the county. And our county fire department is known as the operational area coordinator. They hold the chessboard within our county to figure out how we allocate resources out of county. So we just deployed a strike team with a week and a half ago, a strike team of what we call Type 3 engines. Those are the brush engines. And that strike team, known as 1521 Charlie, which I've gone out on numerous times, consists of 5 engines from within the county, one from Carpinteria, one from Montecito, one from the city, one from Lompoc, and one from Santa Maria. Those 5 engines travel together with a strike team, and this month, our department was up to be the strike team leader. So Battalion Chief Jim McCoy, who I mentioned from the Loma Fire, is actually out with that strike team with a trainee, newly promoted Battalion Chief Michael Hoos. And they are commanding the 22-person strike team. They initially went to the Beckworth complex, which the term complex comes from multiple fires, often that start in somewhat of a geographic area, often say due to a lightning storm or something like that. And what they do is they take these 3 fires and they kind of put them all together. They put a circle around them and they call it a complex. And they handle all 3 fires like it's one incident or even more. So they were on the Beckworth complex, and the Beckworth complex, they had some significant fire activity, especially one night when covering a ranch. If you are on our Facebook page, you likely saw some video of some really significant firefighting activity that was occurring late at night. In fact, it was 10, 11 o'clock at night when they were met with a wall of fire coming down the side of a hill to a ranch. So after that fire seemed to have calmed down, they were redeployed to the Dixie Fire. So that strike team is now over on the Dixie Fire. And then we also have what's called an OES engine, Office of Emergency Services engine. This is an engine that is owned by the state, that the state gives us or loans us with the caveat that when they call, we step up and put a crew on it and go out of town. So we have our OES engine that has also been deployed to the Dixie Fire. So right now we actually have 11 people out of town, all assigned to the Dixie Fire, 4 on Brush Engine 377, 2 strike team leaders, 4 people on the OES engine, and we also have a public information officer that's assigned. So we have 11 people out of town. This will be very typical for the rest of the summer, and this could well extend into November, December, whenever things start to calm down, and hopefully we get some rain. As anyone who's paid attention to the news knows, that the West Coast is under significant heat advisory. Records have been set from British Columbia down to San Diego over the last few weeks. It is very, very dry. And these large fires are going to continue to plague the West Coast until we get some rain. So our personnel are up for the challenge. I'm super proud of them. It's long, arduous, tiring hours of 12 plus 24-hour shifts, especially when an incident is very early. They often go 24, 36 hours straight. But overall, they're doing really well. Again, I'm really pleased with the fact that we are able to not only cover our own stations, but provide needed care for the rest of the communities around us. So, excuse me. Sorry, I'll probably be reporting to you more about as the season goes on, because again, I don't expect it to end until probably November or so. Let me grab a sip of water here real quick. Sorry about that. Commissioner Allman also asked me to talk about call volume, and call volume is indeed up. This is cyclical for the summertime. We typically see many more calls in the summertime, but we also are coming out of COVID. And so the city is busier, the downtown corridor is busier. traffic accidents are up. Unfortunately, even auto pedestrian accidents are up. We're not seeing too many fires. Really, our residential house fires occurred more regularly during the wintertime, but we are seeing continued some small vegetation fires. We have seen still a couple of railroad track fires, a couple of homeless encampment fires, but we're doing much better on the homeless encampment front. But again, our medical call volume is up. I shared with you a couple of months ago that we have a number of patients who utilize our services on a near daily basis. We call them the super utilizers or the high utilizers of EMS. We have multiple agencies, fire department, police department, cottage health, public health, CityNet, all working to try to get those people better care than just the revolving 911 system. So we're working on a number of clients locally that are calling on a significant basis. So we continue to work on those. Those are very challenging for all of us. The other thing I wanted to cover is a little bit about statistics. So Carol, if it's okay, I'll bring up my quick PowerPoint. And Carol, can you share the screen, or would you like me to share the screen?
No, I'll give you control, Chief.
Okay.
Just let me know when you're ready.
Ready? Okay. All right. Can everyone see? Let's see here.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Oh, hey, I hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. So just a really quick overview of quarterly fire stats. As I've shared with you before, our monthly statistics look at a certain set of data and metrics, and our quarterly statistics look at some different data. So as I mentioned to you before, we contract with FireStats, who does an outstanding job of providing reports to us. They drill in much more detail than we possibly have time for. And so I'll just share just a couple of slides with you to just let you know where we're at. So just a quick review for anybody that may watch this, or just a review for everyone. A unique incident is a single call for service. In other words, a medical emergency, a car fire, a structure fire, a transformer fire, that is a unique incident. Unit movements, on the other hand, refers to how many units might be assigned to a single incident. For a typical medical emergency, we send one apparatus. For a cardiac arrest, we send two. So there may be one unit movement associated with a medical call, or there might be two. When you look at a structure fire, we have a minimum of 5 unit movements. We send 3 engines, ladder truck, and a battalion chief to a structure fire. So that would be one unique incident tied to 5 unit movements. So we'll look at those and we'll take a quick look at the difference. So let's do a quick comparison. Table 1 on the left shows Q2 of 2020. And you will see that in 2020 for Q2, which is again April, May, and June, we had 2,237 calls. If you look over at Q2 of 2021, you'll see that we are at 2,782. That's over 500 more calls for the quarter. So you can see that we're clearly bouncing back to what is really fairly normal, and we're running about almost 30 calls a day, which is fairly typical for our department. And then you can kind of scroll down and see the different types of calls. You know, for example, assist could be a public assist where we help someone back into bed, or we help someone with a dog locked in a vehicle or a child locked in a vehicle, something like that. A fire can be anything from just anything from, say, a mattress to a structure fire. And then we have called out in the data vegetation and vehicle fires. So you can see that really all of our call volume is up. Even our public assist calls are up. And we even had a marine fire this last quarter. So, but most importantly, you'll see that our medical calls are up from 1,568 to 2,001 for the quarter. And then looking at the pie chart to the right, you'll see that, that's the same data just put into a pie chart, and you'll clearly see that about 72, and that fluctuates between 70 and 74% are medical aids. We are expecting medical calls for service to continue to increase as our population ages, as we're back out on the streets, again, post-COVID. We'll continue to see these medical emergencies. Looking at incidents by station. Now, this is not unit movements, this is incidents. So the number varies just a little bit, and that has to do with the fact that some incidents are handled by, say, a county fire engine who takes the call, or it's handled by a fire prevention inspector or something like that. But for the most part, you'll see that our downtown station, Station 1, 668 incidents in the quarter out of Station 1. So you get an idea of who's busy and who's not. Station 7 up on the Riviera, they're located on Stanwood Drive. You'll see that there are 49 incidents in their area. Now, again, that's not unit movements. That's incidents in their area. So, for example, if they came down to Lower Milpas Street for a structure fire, that would be found in the unit movement data. You wouldn't find that in Station 7's call volume area. So what that really means is 49 calls in their postage stamp in their first in district. And then I always like to make reference to Fire Station 8. Fire Station 8 is that station that we all completely appreciate. We're glad they're there. As I'm leaving Santa Barbara Airport, I always look up, typically to the right, and see that station there. But when they go on calls for service, it's usually an aircraft emergency. Occasionally they go on a medical emergency, but you'll see that they actually had 11 responses in the quarter, and that's fairly typical for that station. Even when Commissioner Allman was stationed there, at times with me, we would typically see around 50 to 60 calls a year or so. So like I said, it's when you don't get a call at the airport, that's a really good thing. So those are our incidents by station. And then you'll see this is incidents by time of day. This is table 7 on page 8 of your handout. And you'll see that I didn't want to get into a whole lot of detail with days of the week and all that kind of stuff, but you'll clearly see that the busiest time for us is between the hours of about 7 o'clock in the morning until about 10 o'clock at night. And then we depending on the day of the week, we may or may not have a lull, but then we pick up again in the midnight to 2 o'clock hour. That's when the downtown core is alive and lots of people are out. And then of course, you'll see that we get a pretty significant uptick around 2 o'clock in the morning. So typically when bars close and people are leaving, but you'll see, around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, we have a little downtime citywide. And that's, by the way, that is not uncommon for any other fire department around. So that's incidents by time of day. And then these numbers are a little bit confusing, but one of the things I've shared with you before is our incident times and our response times. I pride myself on being able to tell you how quickly our firefighters are getting to calls, how quickly our dispatch center gets calls out, how quickly our firefighters turn out. That means from the time the alarm goes off until the wheels are rolling out of the station, their travel time and their overall response time. Key to total response time is to get that call out as quickly as possible, to have the firefighters shift from whatever they're doing, whether that's a building inspection or working on a fire engine, to being on that fire engine and rolling out the door to a call. And then travel time. Travel time is tough. Travel time, we want to get there as quickly as possible, but we also want to get there as safely as possible. Our fire trucks weigh nearly 40,000 pounds. Our ladder trucks weigh nearly 70,000 pounds, and they're very difficult to stop on a dime. So our fire engineers who drive those apparatus drive very, very safely, very cautiously, and we really want to be careful with trying to poke the bear, so to speak, and tell them to get to an incident quicker or to drive faster. We really manage our travel time very safely. But you'll see that really we're looking at, I like to look at the average, is that our call processing time is sitting at about 1 minute and 12 seconds average. That's a little bit above the standard of 60 seconds. You'll see that our turnout times are a bit above the 1 minute time frame. And again, I've gone so far as to look at 2-story stations versus 1-story stations. It just simply takes us a few more seconds to get down the stairs or down the pole to the rig. And then you look at station 1, that's a 10,000 square foot building, and you know, we basically occupy a whole quarter of the block. You know, our firefighters can be anywhere on the property when a call comes down. So we're hovering around a minute 20, as you see. And then travel time is outstanding. We're traveling to calls average of 3 minutes and 43 seconds. That is really, really impressive. And again, that includes the outlier areas of the city to right downtown. And you'll see that our average response time is about 5 minutes and 1 second with a 90th percentile. That's what we a little bit higher at 7 1/4. So I'm comfortable with the fact that our calls are being processed quickly. Our medical calls especially are being processed quickly. One of the things we do at our dispatch center is we do something called auto launch. And what that means is that when a caller calls up and says, I need an ambulance, we launch the fire truck and the ambulance right away. And then we complete the medical dispatch interrogation it's called emergency medical dispatch. Then we complete that. And upon completion, if it is still an emergency call, we continue the response. If it's deemed to be a non-emergency call, we inform the fire truck and the ambulance that they can shut off their red lights and siren and continue to the call. That I think is a good use of our dispatch resources and our fire apparatus. I can tell you that the future of EMS, and we have an ambulance contract that is going to be going out to RFP, is going to look at medical dispatch as the cornerstone of response. We will not likely be able to do auto launch anymore. We will have to do complete emergency medical dispatch, receive what's called the launch determinant, which means how critically ill or injured is this patient. And then a determination is made based on policy as to what resources we will send. Will it be a fire truck and an ambulance? Will it be just an ambulance? Will it be just a fire truck? So all of that is coming. Unfortunately, that's going to take more work for our dispatch center because we will 100% of the time need to complete our EMD before we send fire apparatus. I expect that to be coming in the next couple of years when the ambulance contract is renewed. So just a quick overview. We chatted about out-of-town assignments. We chatted about medical emergencies, and we chatted about stats. I would like to leave you with just one final solemn note. This afternoon, the Ventura County Fire Department said goodbye to a very young fire hand crew member, Zachary Gregson, who was a member of the Ventura County Fire Department hand crew, was involved in an off-duty motorcycle accident last week, and this afternoon succumbed to his injuries. So all of us in our one big fire family, and whenever I hear that, it just breaks my heart. Zachary's father is a retired Oxnard PD officer, and his mother is a nurse for the Ventura County Fire Department, a medical educator for the Ventura County Fire Department. So we'll keep our thoughts with the Gregson family as they endure this terrible loss of their son. So that concludes my report, and I will answer any questions you have.
Hey, Chief, I have a question. Up on the top of the mesa the last couple nights, have I been smelling smoke in the air? Is that?
I don't know. I haven't seen any reports, but
well, I mean, that's traveling, you know, atmospherically into our location.
It could be with the jet stream. Yeah, absolutely. I've seen some smoke out west of us, out toward Point Conception, so it absolutely can be wrapping around. So we start smelling it. I'll share with you, I got a picture from my daughter from New York City, and she took a picture of the smoke from the California wildfires in New York City. So if you're smelling it on the mesa, I have no doubt, because my daughter's seeing it in New York.
Right, right. I can definitely smell it in the evenings. So I'm running filters at home, right? Filters that were purchased way back during the Thomas fire.
And, as fires get closer, people start wanting to use masks, and that's absolutely appropriate too. N95 masks are available, at hardware stores. They're the same masks that we use on all of our medical emergencies. So, we were handing out N95 masks during the Thomas fire by the case.
Wow. I remember those days.
I have a couple of questions. Fire Chief, I know it's only been a few months, or actually, I'm sorry, a few weeks since the encampment cleanup project started. However, saying that the majority of calls are medical calls, and as you mentioned, many of them are frequent callers, i.e. homeless who don't have primary care physicians, so they use 911 as a way to get medical care. I'm wondering if you've noticed a change in the medical calls. That's one in regards to that topic. And then also, I understand that there were 6 sites that were identified for cleanup and 2 of them have been completed. I'm wondering how you see the effectiveness of this project in reducing fire danger, fire risk.
So I'll answer your first question, and that you're absolutely right, especially the homeless. Their access to healthcare is via 911. And where I have the luxury to call my private physician and schedule an appointment, though homeless patients access their medical care by calling 911. So I'd have to drill into the statistics to see exactly what our call volume is. Unfortunately, I don't think I can report that right now, but I could next month. So if you give me an opportunity to look into, to see what percentage of our medical calls involve homeless, I can absolutely report back to you next month. As far as the homeless camps, I can tell you that, yes, we have seen a decrease in fires coming from the homeless camps. We saw a large uptick for several months, and now it seems to be much more infrequent. I think we had 2 last weekend, but we were seeing, up to a half a dozen or so during the week at times. So I can tell you with relative certainty that, yes, we are seeing a decrease in the homeless camp fires, and that's a great thing. There are still fires that are near homeless camps that our investigators go out and they go, well, was it a homeless camp related, or was it a kid riding down the railroad tracks on his bicycle? Sometimes we can't absolutely pinpoint it, but it is in an area that is typically associated with homeless camps. So sometimes we can draw that conclusion. So I'm kind of dodging the question, but I don't have absolute perfect stats, but I will get back to you next month with that.
Well, maybe it might be more informative if it was done in a quarter. That way we can compare this quarter versus last year at this time. And I think that might help, city council understand if this is affecting overall city budget or city resources, this type of project. And then also the same for fire calls. So medical calls and fire calls that are related to homelessness. That would be great if you can do that.
Yep, we can do that. We can pull that right out of our what's called Image Trend, which is our records management system. And if the call, any type of call involves a homeless, we can pull that data out. So yes, I can absolutely get that. And I do agree with you, probably quarterly would be better, just because there's not a huge volume, so we can look at larger trends. So I will definitely take care of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any public comment out there? Carol?
No public comment, Chair Stedman.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a lot of information that you always present, Chief. And those tables are just jam-packed with info, but I appreciate you, pointing out the trends and the critical, the key points. So, and I'm sure the public does too. you know, how you distill that down to really easily understandable terms.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for your service. Any questions, John?
Yeah, I have a question or a comment. In the future, and I don't know when we can bring this up, a future agenda item might be, we're looking at, there's been talk of a combined communication center that would involve all the agencies in one spot. And I think that maybe future agenda might include a report that would go into that in some detail so that folks know why and how that should happen. It's a very important item. Could affect all of us on and on whenever that thing could come about. So it has to do with money and it has to do with organization, but I think it's something we need to talk about. So I don't know how soon we could put that together, but in the future, sooner and better.
Okay, sure. I'd be happy to do that, Commissioner Allman. Yeah, what we're talking about is the Regional Fire Communications Facility. The fire departments of the county are looking to consolidate into one dispatch center with the goal of sending the right resource at the right time, regardless of jurisdiction. And it would, we would take down our politically or geographically created lines and truly send the closest fire resource, most appropriate resource, quickly without delays in multiple dispatch centers. The project is moving forward. I can tell you that I'm working diligently with the police chief and also with city finance to try to secure the funding for it. It is expensive, but if you look at what we will get out of it, it is a really good thing. So I'm working to try to find the money, and as I work with city finance, I'll be able to report back to you and let you know where we stand on that project.
Excellent. John or Commissioner Rodriguez, any further questions for the chief?
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll work on getting that actually into the agenda, Chief Mails, going forward. Okay, so let's move on to item number 10, new business. Are there any items there? All right. Let's move now on to item number 11, which is approval of the dance permit for Yona Reds at 532 State Street. So if Lori's on, maybe she can represent.
Sure thing. Let me just give you the highlights again of where we're looking at. We're looking at the 500 block of State Street, and Yona Reds is a business that was established in late 2020 and has been operating with no dance and is now looking to add that to their location. They have submitted all the required documents and gotten the approvals from the necessary departments, community development, fire inspections, and then police department staff also went through and did a security check just recently and find that their package meets the standard and that they have complied with all the requirements. And so staff is recommending, along with the conditions that are listed in your report, that they be granted a dance permit at their location going forward.
Excellent. Hey, Lori, I have a question for you. Now, on the conditions concerning the guards, the security guards, minimum 5 security guards, is that simultaneously or is that on a rotation? Do you know?
It is my understanding that they would be there, I believe, in the designated locations at the same time, so that they would be there to respond to an incident at the facility at that time, that they would be there, not rotating around.
Okay. And then also, our condition is that they can have a TV outside in their area, but they can't have any like music sound system. Is that correct?
That is correct. The music system is designated as being located on the upstairs, facing away from the windows. So to limit the noise that comes out, and the windows are to be closed during that time period when it is in use in order to make sure that the noise doesn't exceed the level and the distance.
Got it. Yeah, 50 feet, I guess. Okay. Are there questions from my fellow commissioners on this, or any public comment? Okay. Is there a motion to
I think
approve? Yes. Do you have a question, John?
one quick question. 5 security guards, are those uniformed, or would they be in the old verbiage bouncers, or how does that work?
Good question.
I believe the packet indicates that they are to be a visible presence in a uniform, so that they're clearly what they are.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
All right. So it sounds like we have enough security to set forth in the conditions. Five security guards on location once dancing starts, I guess. All right. So if there are no further questions, do we have a motion for approval of this dance permit?
I move to approve the dance permit.
Okay. Do we have a second?
A second?
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. The dance permit is approved unanimously by the Fire and Police Commission.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you for your report and for presenting twice. Really appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay, now let's move on to item number 12, which is staff communication. So I'm going to hand that right over to you, Vice Chair, for your update.
Sure. So updating on the Community Formation Commission, the CFC was created as a result of community demands last summer during the George Floyd protest. Calling for civilian oversight of law enforcement, the CFC is tasked with researching and making recommendations for the development of a civilian oversight body to the City Council. At last week's meeting, the CFC adopted a working timeline and approved meetings twice a month, along with work groups holding additional meetings throughout the week. This basically means we're rolling up our sleeves and we're getting work done so that we can have a good amount of recommendations to present. Also at the last meeting, the CFC received a summary of the development and history of the Fire and Police Commission, as well as the Civil Service Commission, with some discussion of if these bodies would be appropriate to take over or to take on the civilian oversight functions. A video of that meeting, the working calendar, and other documents can be found online at the city website for the Community Formation Commission. As reported last week and was asked today, NACOL was contracted to facilitate the ongoing process, so facilitate the CFC meetings as well as the work group meetings. And this is going to help the group tremendously to get organized and to get the proper information needed to make appropriate recommendations. The next meeting is scheduled for next week, July 28th, and it'll, if I understand correctly, it'll be focused on reporting out of the various models of community oversight and a presentation of what has been done so far will be reported to the council next week. Any
Wow.
questions on that?
So you guys are meeting twice a month.
We're going to start meeting twice a month starting next week.
Wow. Wow. I just know from personal experience, that's quite a pace. Twice a month. That's a lot of work. So good job. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
you know, when you have such a large group, we have now 14 members. 13 are active members and one is an alternate. We lost one person who had to resign last week. But when you have that many people on a commission, it takes a long time to really get to the meat of the meeting. So, and this group is really conscious to make sure every voice is heard and folks have time and opportunity to ask questions. So it's taken a few months to get through the relationship building and to get to the forming part of group work. And now we're ready to do the work.
Well,
Yeah,
that's,
thank you for taking that on. And your group, great job. I mean, I can understand trying to work with 13 or 14 folks. That's a big group. I mean, we got a perfect sized group. Seems like,
right.
but that's a tough one. It's a tough one, but good to you.
Yeah. Even having 7 on a commission is that much more work, right? Because you have that much more input. So I know from that experience, 14, that's a lot of work, a lot of leadership. I have one question for you. Do you feel that that we, the Fire and Police Commission, are represented in some capacity in the proceedings of that oversight commission?
Well, this group is not necessarily the oversight. It's the group that's going to research and present recommendations. So at this time, I don't think it's necessary for the Fire and Police Commission to have a quote representation. Thus far, it's only been information gathering, and there are different work groups like community engagement, data and statistics, looking at the different models of the potential formation or the oversight commission. So I think later, as we get further along and start hashing out the recommendations, that's when I think it would be important to have somebody from me and public comment to represent different facets of the city to make sure that folks are properly represented.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, it seems like every month I need to be reminded that it's just the formation commission, not the actual commission. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good.
And
Good.
the next committee is the History on Race and Policing, and we've discussed that a couple of times in these meetings, and I believe that we've already approved for this training to take place in closed session. So Chief Alekian can give more detail on the context of the training, because he'll be one of the co-facilitators of that. But I would like to encourage us to place this on a calendar. It would be great if we can offer this for the current commission, and then again after January when the new commission is formed. So perhaps Chair Stedman and Chief Alekian can work with the Human Resources Department to schedule that.
Of course. Yeah, I will definitely take that up, because it was one of the topics that we discussed in the liaison meeting earlier. So that's why I'm asking about it. So I think that's one answer right there, right, Chief? It's going to be recommended for closed session.
Chair Stedman, that is correct. And I think both Lieutenant Hill and I have been working with Graciela. Our presentations are pretty much ready to go. And I think the real question, it needs to come from the commission, which is, do you want to do a special meeting, or do you want to simply do a closed session at one of your regularly scheduled meetings? And once you tell us what that is, that's how we'll go forward.
Okay, well,
the direction needs to come from the commission, not from HR, I think.
Sure. I think Vice Chair was just talking about coordination, but I mean, we can address that matter right now, Commission. Do John and Lizzie, do you guys want to just have the closed session maybe on the same day as our meeting, or do you want to have it on a separate day? To me, it doesn't matter. I always keep my calendar flexible during that week. That we have a normally scheduled public meeting. So I'm at this point, I'm okay. I don't have any conflicts. Meaning we either, do both events on the same day or on two separate days. Doesn't matter to me. How about you?
For me-
Lizzie?
For me, it's fine either way too, but, yeah, I think it'd be easy to come to a consensus, pretty quick, but I would guess we would have a regular meeting and then following that, we would have the training on the same day or something like that.
Mhm. If we could schedule this at a meeting where we have a really short agenda, I don't know what our August agenda looks like, but we could hold our regularly scheduled meeting and then right after that, we could hold a closed session meeting.
Okay.
That would take us to the, 7:30 hour, but if I'm anticipating that the material and the presentation will be engaging, so we'll want to stay that long.
Yeah, I'm for
Right.
that. I'm for that idea.
Yeah, I'd say we get it done in one session. And I'm used to, on the Harbor Commission, sometimes we're working till like 9:30. So that's fine. I'm okay with that. Does that help you out, Chief?
It does. I think our plan was that the total presentation and presumed questions would probably consume about an hour. So I concur with, but we don't know how many, depends on the questions and the depth of the discussion and all that. So I think the idea of doing it at the end of the meeting is good. I would, just for staff, I would request that we, to the degree that we can, that we shorten the agenda of the regular meeting.
Okay. All right. So let's manage that for August then. We'll try to have a really tight, concise agenda so that we can provide in that closed session and accomplish the training. Does that sound okay, commissioners?
Sounds great.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's been addressed, Chief. We're good on that, and we reached consensus fairly quickly because we only have 3 people, which is good. It's very easy to move along here. All right. So, and I'm sure Carol and Nicole are recording all that. So, do we have any other further staff communications? Anything anybody wants to announce or inform the public of? Great point, by the way, John, on that combined communication center. We'll get that on an agenda. So, yeah.
It is important and it's going to make a big difference. I think Ventura County works that way and other agencies work that way. Maybe the chief can correct me on that, but it's the way of the future and it's the way of making things a whole lot more organized and speedy to get help, So I'm all for it. I like the idea.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And I, if I could, I'd just weigh in, and I know Chief Males is probably still on, but I actually have been involved in this process myself, both with the Sheriff's Department and it was one of my projects when I was in the county executive office. So I probably can add something to that discussion as well.
Right.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. Well, unless there's any lingering public comment out there, if there are no hands, I guess we can move to a motion for adjournment.
Before we do, can I just want to thank Councilmember Gutierrez for being here. I know he hasn't said anything, he's quiet, but I see that he's on and I just want to thank him for attending the meeting.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Council Member Gutierrez. I do see he is on, he's logged in. And everyone else who helps produce this public meeting. So much appreciated. Any other comments? Okay. I'd like to make a motion for adjournment. Do we have a second?
I second it.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The July 22nd, 2021 Fire and Police Commission meeting is now officially adjourned. Thank you. Get some